Path of Exile is a dark fantasy ARPG that has grown a massive player base over the past few years, and with this growth comes a huge influx of newer players looking to find their next favorite video game. However, one of the biggest turnoffs to many players in Path of Exile is the sheer complexity of the game itself. You have a massive skill tree of some 200 plus passive points to choose from, you have an endless shopping list of modifiers you can randomly roll on your poorly optimized set of gear, and on top of that, you also have to select your main skill from an ever-growing list of attack and spell skills. If you are overwhelmed by the numerous intricacies that embody the very essence of this unique ARPG, and are still uncertain as to what skill will allow you to progress smoothly into the end game, I believe that this video can help you at the very least decide on that main skill. But before I get into the video, I would like to take a second to ask you to hit the like and subscribe button, since it appears to me that the new meta is to do a call to action at the beginning of the video as opposed to the end, so please like and subscribe as that will help this video greatly in the algorithm. And yeah, let's get into the video. The best melee skill in Path of Exile is Lacerate. Specifically on a Bleed Lacerate Gladiator. But why? Why do I believe that Lacerate is arguably one of the best, if not the best, melee skill in the game? The reasons are quite simple. It is a viable one-button skill, it allows for great versatility in a build's defenses, and it functions as a semi-ranged skill that scales off of melee damage. Taking into consideration that newer players generally have less fundamental knowledge of the game's core mechanics, these are all reasons that I believe make Lacerate stand head and shoulders above all other melee skills. So let's take a look at the first reason as to why I think Lacerate is the best melee skill. At least in the context that it is played on a Bleed Lacerate Gladiator. Lacerate takes advantage of one of the most powerful damage over time effects in the game, which is the bleed mechanic. Because it deals damage over time, players are able to worry a little less about how many times they are hitting their enemies and focus more on learning the enemy's mechanics and avoiding potential one-shot scenarios. And since it deals so much damage, it can potentially be used as a standalone one-button build. Even though veteran players recommend pairing Lacerate with casting the Vulnerability Curse and Ancestral War Sheath Totem for extra damage, this skill is strong enough to clear endgame content even without these extra accessories. Unsurprisingly, one-button builds are one of the most coveted types of builds in Path of Exile due to their simplicity and ease of gameplay. In a game that is so oriented towards complexity, discovery, and RNG, Lacerate stands to be one of the most consistently simplistic builds in the game. Jump around, throw out a couple wind slashes, and watch your enemies bleed out. Unlike the slam builds that are growing in popularity as of late, Lacerate does not depend on war cries to scale its damage. Even though slam skills may have better damage output when it comes to progressing endgame content and obtaining endgame gear, their sheer clunkiness and the fact that their war cry combos render them stationary can potentially put players into very dangerous situations. Whereas Lacerate builds, on the other hand, can simply throw out one or two slashes, dance around the enemy, and throw out more slashes as they are left maimed, blinded, and bleeding. But beyond the fact that it deals tremendous amounts of damage and is a very viable one-button skill, Lacerate also opens up many options for defense when it comes to the passive skill tree. For reference, let's take a look at the skill tree that I have made for my own Bleed Lacerate Gladiator, which I am playing in my hardcore solo self-found no body armor no two-hand weapon challenge. In both of these trees, you'll notice that I take advantage of many life nodes as well as armor scaling nodes in order to set up a couple base layers of defense. Now where it gets interesting is that once I have this base passive tree set up, I can choose either to path up for more life as well as chaos resistances, which are both huge for pushing endgame content, or I can path here, here, and here in order to maximize my block chance, which gives 100% damage mitigation on block so long as I am not running glancing blows. Of course, in each respective skill tree, you will also need to change your ascendancy passives accordingly to optimize the build's functionality, but the point that I'm really trying to make here is you have options. Now, for the final reason as to why I think Lacerate is the best melee skill in Path of Exile is that its range is not quite like that of a conventional melee strike skill like Double Strike, Heavy Strike, and so on. Its attack animation functions quite like a projectile skill, but in fact scales from melee damage. The fact that players can wreak havoc on their enemies from range while using a melee skill adds on yet another layer of pseudo defense, where instead of reducing the total amount of incoming damage taken, players simply find themselves in fewer dangerous situations as a result of not needing to run up in close proximity to enemies in order to fight them. So these are the main reasons why I feel that Lacerate is one of the best, if not the best, melee skill in Path of Exile. Obviously, by no means am I suggesting that every other melee skill is inherently bad, but if you have reasons as to why you believe another melee skill is better than Lacerate, feel free to open a discussion with me in the comments. I can generally respond to the majority of comments on my videos since my channel is still small. That being said, if you liked what you saw in this video, feel free to subscribe subscribe to my channel. It will help out my channel a lot, and you can unsubscribe anytime you want. Also, check out my Twitch channel if you want to hang out with me whenever I'm on. And that's all, folks. Thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.